One way to win with blockchains is to be very early and to recognize trends and narratives even before they become something very popular. And that is what this video is all about. We're going to discuss stablecoins, of course, meme coins at some point in time, obviously the Bitcoin chart, and we're also going to look at institutional and corporate blockchains. There's a lot of money flowing through X402. These are payments being made with AI agents. So we're talking about AI agentic commerce. Now, as you can see, there are many members that are working within this whole AI agentic commerce world. It is not just the future, it is the present, and I believe, based on the evidence that I've seen, that this is just hardly begun. And it's only going to get further and deeper to the point where people are transacting with AI agents and they don't even know. That is a sign of clear adoption. Now, a lot of us are absolutely using Claude, using Cursor, using Lovable, different types of tools to build apps. This is the generation now where we have a say in what we create with ease. So is AI agentic commerce the future? Of course, is it future? Is shopping going to be AI powered? Is shopping AI powered right now? The answer is absolutely yes. This is just a conversation, perhaps to have something that's clickbait or some type of narrative that is in sync with what's obvious. It's right before our eyes. So now during a bear market, people are looking for the best narratives, the best memes, the best DeFi play, the best blockchains. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the best upcoming blockchains. Some of them actually have launched already, but they're under strong narratives. I'm going to show you exactly how to find some of those tokens that are launching, some of those projects that are launching on these chains. Some of them, of course, are DeFi, meme coins, infrastructure, wallets, and so on. I'm going to show you why they're important, and I'm going to even show you as a builder where you could actually look if you're looking to transition into a new career. So definitely join CoinWins. We're going to be making some changes as usual into the future. Definitely sign up for CoinWins. Now let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart super quickly. And what we can see is that we have yet to complete most likely our third drop level. I've got a line here. It's just a line, and I'm anticipating price to go into that zone somewhere in and around. But that doesn't necessarily mean that other altcoins such as Ethereum haven't already bottomed. As you can see, the Bitcoin bottom was in November of 2022. You can see that right here. Let's look at Ethereum in November of 2022. Well, let's just take a look. Ethereum saw the right side of its W in November of 2022. The problem is Ethereum is not really doing that well in the grand scheme of things. Not to mention other assets like gold look like they have topped. They have definitely topped, okay? And other assets like, bundles, let's say the SPY, you can clearly see that we're likely going into a bearish trend. But we will be patient and watch gold to see when there's a bullish flip on gold, which will then eventually likely lead into Bitcoin. Like I said, in this video, I'm going to show you how to find some of these tokens and how to find the ecosystem projects. Some of them are tokens as well, perhaps NFTs, that are likely to do well, that are vetted, and in some cases by the teams themselves that are behind these chains. So let's dive in. We'll come back to this in a moment. The first chain, of course, we're going to talk about is Base Chain. And this is simple. Base Chain is, of course, powered by, the Coinbase team using the Optimism Stack. Now, this is essentially an Ethereum layer 2, okay? Now, there are some bullish qualities about this, but there are also some that are not so favorable. A lot of people are down on Ethereum as on a whole, and this whole idea of this layer 2 complex, people don't like it. But the reality is, Base has a lot of customers funneled in through the Coinbase app. This is an opportunity for them. And like I always say, the blockchain, something specifically like Ethereum, is a shopping mall. And a shopping mall has shared entrances, shared parking, shared resources, electricity, and security. Base and other chains that we'll get into are, layer 2s, are all essentially some type of shop in the mall. They benefit from the security of Ethereum, and Ethereum is the mall. They have the advertising, the marketing, they have the trust they have the liquidity, they have the foot traffic, and so on. So there's something bullish about Base. As much as people don't love the fact that it doesn't necessarily accrue a lot of value directly to ETH, that asset, it still allows for people, companies to build, and build they will. The next one is Robinhood Chain. This is a little bit newer than Base, but nonetheless, it's very similar. Now, this is built using the Arbitrum Stack, whereas Base was built using the Optimism Stack. And these stacks are quite similar on their own. So we'll dive in and I'll show you a little bit more about the other chains and how they differ from these two chains. But let's continue on. Robinhood is a real world asset chain. Of course, this chain can do everything, but it's being geared more towards real world assets. So when you want to look for projects on this chain, you are looking for real world asset plays. That is essentially what the with what Robinhood is going to be rewarding. They're going to reward people who are coming with the idea of institutions converting real world assets into something digitized on the blockchain. That is essentially the main goal behind Robinhood. As you know, Robinhood app and Robinhood Crypto, this new blockchain, they're going to link together very well. And you can clearly see that as Robinhood Chain is essentially the fastest Ethereum virtual machine chain to 100 million transactions in essentially a month. That is incredible. So you look at something like Coinbase, those numbers don't necessarily hit the same anymore. As you see, it's now the fastest over Base and other chains to hit those numbers. But still, Base is ideally dealing with AI agents, a lot of AI tokenization, X402, so where the world transacts on chain. They of course have the Base app, and of course they have the Coinbase exchange. But there's more. There's another layer, another chain, a layer 2, built by another exchange. So look, we came from Coinbase and we went to Robinhood, which is another app of its own exchange. And now we're going to Kraken, who has this Ethereum layer 2 called Ink. Now, I think this one has the marketing angle down right. I think Kraken, and I know Kraken is one of the most powerful most powerful exchanges in the world today for two critical reasons. Now, the Federal Reserve has actually given Kraken an account, a master account. So this is critical to understand exactly why Kraken has the chance of becoming one of these top chains, corporate chains. And even, to be honest, it's even farther beyond just a corporate chain. Okay, again, Kraken has a lot of users. Okay, so for United States banking, Kraken, essentially the builders that made Kraken, they built a chain and it's called Ink. It's built on the Optimism Superchain, just like Base. Similar story here. Okay, and Kraken also has a banking charter and a Federal Reserve master account. This is huge for any company. So I anticipate personally a lot of US money to flow through this exchange, Kraken, as well as this blockchain. But I also find that it may not be as big as Base, we'll see, but I can see them making a cultural splash, but also probably not necessarily as much as Robinhood. But that's for time to tell, right? So we've got the Federal Reserve master account, which is absolutely incredible, but it also has a digital asset bank charter. So there's a lot going on here, and we just did a recent deep dive into this project right here, into this chain and a lot of the projects on the chain. And like I said, I'll teach you exactly how to find these hidden gems, potential hidden gems, before the masses figure it all out. And here you go. It's built by Kraken, the chain built for tokenized finance. So keep these keywords in mind. Tokenized finance, perhaps real world assets, okay, perhaps some type of transactions on chain, perhaps AI agents or agentic commerce. Let's move to the next two. And these ones are built for stablecoins. Now, there's an idea floating around in my mind and within my circle, definitely, again, like I said, join us at CoinWins, subscribe to the channel, and join the community. This is where we dive in on a weekly basis to do research. All of my students, all of the members of my community understand what I'm interested in before anybody else does. But I definitely do my best to show up here for everybody. So think about this. Here's a new blockchain. It's the stablecoin payment rail for the world. That is another narrative. They're trying to focus on USDT. The next chain I want to talk about wants to focus on USDC. Now, I saved these two for last, and I'm putting them together because one is USDT, which is Tether, which you guys probably know from back in Bitcoin times, maybe 2013, 2014. Mastercoin, essentially those guys that were building that meta protocol on Bitcoin essentially moved to make their own Tether blockchain. And so now we have a stablecoin that is ideally designed for payments around the world. And that's why you have Stable coming through and connecting with PayPal, okay? As well as Bitfinex, which is another digital asset trading platform. It's another exchange. So here we go yet again. Base is coming from Coinbase. Robinhood Chain is coming from Robinhood app. Inc is coming from Kraken. Stable is coming from Bitfinex, but also PayPal and more. So there's something bullish here, but there's also something a little bearish in this idea of corporate institutional chains. It's not necessarily hitting exactly the way some people might think it should. And the reality is something like Robinhood has come a long way in such a short time. It launched with its founding members essentially saying that we're great for meme coins. Any chain is great for meme coins, really. But just to hear that from a founder gives people, the underground, the degens, perhaps the researchers, deep blockchain native people, a chance or an idea, feeling, a sensation that this is not just for corporate money. This is actually for enjoyment, for fun, for utility, for skill, and of course, for wealth transfer and preservation. And so we have USDC over here on ARK. Okay, built by Circle. Now, we've gone super deep into Circle over the years. It's like I said, if you've joined my community, you've definitely heard of Circle. And the founding members of Circle have created platforms and tools for the internet, long before some of us have even been here. I've got a video on the channel, and I'll link it at the end. I'll link two. One is about how to find meme coins right now, because I'm going to show you how to find some other tokens just in general and good projects. But the other one is talking about Circle. I think that video is fantastic because this is my number one pick, I could say, in a way, of these chains: Base, Robinhood, Inc, Stable, and of course ARK. So we're looking at AI-powered economic models. We're looking at foreign exchange. The largest asset class being traded in the world every single day is foreign exchange. So there's something fantastic happening here with Stable, but I feel that with Circle's backing and Jeremy Allaire, I feel there's a little more, and of course the connection between Circle and Coinbase, I feel there's something special here with what ARK is building. So while Stable and ARK took the custom layer 1 route, building entire chains optimized around USDT for Stable and of course USDC for ARK, and of course their consensus, right, using these two assets to transact. So Ethereum transacts on ETH, it transacts on Ethereum, and Sol is for Solana, and so forth. These use USDT and USDC respectively. The other major institutional players chose a bit of a different path. So I'm talking about Base and Robinhood and of course Inc, these platforms, okay? Base and Inc and Robinhood Chain all decided to launch as Ethereum rollups. And when big companies decide to do that, they almost always reach for one of the two open frameworks. That is the OP Stack and of course the Arbitrum Stack. These are the main two. So of course here is the Arbitrum Stack on this side, and we also have the OP stack on this side. So these two toolkits have become the default infrastructure for corporate and exchange-backed chains that will essentially they want to stay tightly connected to Ethereum security and the liquidity. Again, I mentioned earlier that they launch on these platforms. It's like a shopping mall, and they are a store in the shopping mall that benefits from the security. It benefits from the foot traffic, which is essentially the liquidity. It benefits from the marketing, the positioning, the strength, the assurance. Okay, so that's the OP stack. Lots of chains built there, but of course we also have the Arbitrum Stack as well for you to launch your own chain. They both do a lot of the same things, but they do them slightly differently in different ways. Okay, so the OP stack, which is developed by OP Labs, powers Base and Ink. It's modular, it's fully EVM equivalent. It's designed around the superchain idea. So this superchain idea is a multi-chain or multiple chains that can eventually share standards, bridges, and sequencing. Now, guys, bridges are oftentimes some of the riskiest attack surfaces in this industry. So we take that very seriously. Coinbase used it for Base. Kraken's using it for Ink, as you see right here. Kraken mentions that, and it's right there. You have the idea of a superchain. Okay. But both get battle-tested, optimistic roll-up security, that's one thing, and familiar developer tools for those who are familiar with the EVM side, and a clear path into growing networks of interoperable chains. That is more of the OP stack, and again, this idea of this super chain concept, okay? Now, Robinhood went in the other direction with the Arbitrum Stack. Now, this is specifically Orbit, which is built on Nitro. It gives them high performance, low latency execution. Of course, we need that as a standard. The option for custom configurations and, of course, stylus. So developers can write contracts in more than just Solidity. So stuff like Rust, right? So a lot of Solana developers as well are familiar. Just developers alone are familiar with Rust. So as an Orbit chain, and it settles to Ethereum. It is also contributes to a share of the revenue back to the broader Arbitrum ecosystem. So both frameworks, Optimism Stack as well as the Arbitrum Stack, are now adding stronger ZK knowledge options. So withdrawals and finality can move from days to minutes. And the thing that's interesting is there's more like a 7-day withdrawal period for some of these chains, right? These layer 2s. So the idea of optimistic rollups is that the chain or the layer 2, this Arbitrum or OP Optimism, they essentially bundle a bunch of Ethereum transactions off of on a separate layer, and they essentially trust it to be valid unless somebody contests it within 7 days. But now with ZK knowledge or ZK proof, zero knowledge proofs, you have the ability to have assets that are totally backed already and they're verifiable. So imagine the idea of knowing, a box in a room in a house, but you don't know what city the house is in or what street the house is in. So you know exactly which room it is and you know exactly which box it is. But if you blindfold the person, cover their ears and take them out of the room and out of the house, they don't even know what street they're on. They may not even know which house it is. So that's an interesting way to look at zero knowledge. But the idea is that the flexibility is a big reason that institutions keep choosing these open frameworks like Optimism and Arbitrum, right? That's the main idea. It's because they do this instead of building a chain from scratch. But here's why this technical choice actually matters beyond the chains themselves. So these corporate rollups, I'm talking, of course, Base, and we're looking at Robinhood, and we're looking at Ink. They sit right next to the stablecoin native chains like Arc and Stable. Of course, Stable doesn't necessarily have. It's a layer 1, and of course Arc is also a layer 1, but they're still EVM compatible. Okay, together they form the rails for something much bigger. So we're talking something very important: stablecoin AI agentic commerce. Think about what that means for regular people. AI agents are already starting to handle real tasks: booking, shopping, negotiating, paying. This is not totally out of the norm is it? It's actually more or less an everyday occurrence at this point, right? So volatile tokens and complicated wallets create friction. Stablecoins remove most of that friction. You have an asset that is worth $1, and that's what it will be worth all the time. When an AI agent can pay in USDC or USDT on a chain that finalizes in under a second, or on a low fee Ethereum rollup, something like Coinbase or Base or Robinhood Chain or Inc., the experience starts to feel normal, and it's super abstract. You know, all the challenges and all of the bridging and the discomfort of interacting with DeFi and blockchains is abstracted away, especially with something like Arc and the ability to have multiple chains and one unified balance. There's something fantastic being built here, and it's to streamline a lot of this. Okay, so essentially these chains like Coinbase and Robinhood, you know, there's no seed phrases required for basic use. No gas token volatility. This is super simple. Again, this is for USDC and USDT, right? But even when it's not like that, super low fee Ethereum rollups, regular users can already access them through Coinbase and through Robinhood, and of course through Kraken, and of course in more ways than that over time. There's no question, especially when we look at what's happening with, again, X402. It's baked right into your browser. We've talked about this a lot on the channel, so you guys can definitely look into some of those earlier videos and dive into that if you need more research. Okay, so essentially agents are transacting in dollars on infrastructure that institutions already trust. So there's something bearish in the sense that it is corporate and an institutional focused project or product, but that also builds a level of trust and reduces friction. But that's the bridge. The bridge, Stable and Arc optimize the pure stablecoin settlement layer. Base, Inc., and Robinhood Chain bring lots of distribution to and from their exchanges. Not to mention Stable as well, being that Stable is connected to Bitfinex. Not the most popular exchange, but it's an exchange, it's liquidity, it's customers, it's a user base nonetheless. Okay, so essentially, the existing user base and the Ethereum aligned security model through OP Stack and Arbitrum just helps to smooth things out for people. It builds a level of trust. But together they create an environment where AI agents can actually do commerce on behalf of everyday users without forcing those users to become crypto experts or immune to volatility. You know, the frameworks themselves, OP Stack and of course Arbitrum, they are just the plumbing. The real shift that the plumbing right now is good enough. It's institutional enough, and it's just perfect essentially for AI agents and normal people to meet right in the middle using stablecoins. So imagine stablecoins are essentially the bridge that connects us from blockchains to AI. Blockchains came here first, in a sense, but AI, the integrations and the implementations of AI essentially came later, but it's two beautiful cities that are being bridged together by USDT, USDC, essentially, right? So again, check out CoinWins. I definitely recommend you guys sign up. The next part of the video, I want to talk about some of these projects a little bit, but more about how you yourselves can go about finding them, find the winners. And of course, we use a lot of different tools. One of them absolutely is CoinWins again, so do sign up and join the community. Join our weekly calls because we go deep into everything I'm about to show you now, just a different layer. So in some cases, we would start somewhere like this, and we would look for some of these chains. For example, right there, I would just type in Stable, and I would look at Stable, and I would look for some of the top tokens that are running. Since we're super early, there are really only a few. I'm not going to tell you which ones I think are the winners, particularly in this video. That's not really what it's for. It's more to show you how to find them. So this is one way to find them in terms of finding actual tokens. You simply go to a chain like this, or go to an app like this, a platform, and you search by chain. And then you start to look at the liquidity, see where it's flowing, look at the top meme coins on the chain. That's going to give you a culture, an edge to understand the culture of this chain and see if you can essentially ride the wave before it becomes absolutely huge, but at the same time, using something like CoinWins to better understand the timing of the market. Because you don't really want to be buying meme coins on a super small chain and holding that for months and months and months, and Bitcoin hasn't actually clearly bottomed. Let's continue on to ARK. Now, a couple of quick websites to show you. You can sign up, especially as a developer, if you want to find a way to do events and meet up with people. This is a great place to sign up, and it's actually an official site, and it's monitored by official real members of the team, anything from hackathons and much more. But also on ARK, you have other ways to explore the ecosystem directly, again, on the main website. So you want to definitely check out the ecosystem. And what I would be doing is looking for the narratives that are in line specifically with that chain. So we're looking at USDC, we're looking at foreign exchange. I would be looking for exchanges. I'd be looking for on-ramps or off-ramps, and of course a little bit more. That's specifically for ARK. Now, we look at Optimism. This is just the bigger picture for the layer 2s, specifically looking at Inc. and looking at Robinhood and, of course, Base. We look at the Optimism Superchain to see what is building. And one of the major things, I guess, that I'm looking for too is it natively built on the platform, and is it exclusive? One of the two or both is absolutely fantastic for finding something that is cutting edge and a leading narrative on that platform. So we can search by chains, projects, different events, programs, contributors. So we can look at all the chains that are in this super chain ecosystem. And lo and behold, you see some of the ones that we talked about earlier. We've talked about a lot of these, especially in our calls, but we just spoke about a couple of these, but you could see there are more. And perhaps you'll find something deep down in there that is really truly valuable and unique to that ecosystem. Let's continue on and look at Arbitrum. Okay, same thing here. You can look for projects on this chain, and I'm personally looking for exclusive to Arbitrum tokens and platforms to see who's really building for the cause, for this culture, for this narrative. Also, we're looking at layer 3s like Degen Chain. We got into that as well. That was a very fun time in the bull market. So be careful. A lot of these have very little liquidity and no real marketing budgets, but sometimes, again, you catch something super early. Let's quickly look at Inc. Again, this is also the Optimism rollup, and you want to look for projects that are exclusive to this platform, or they are natively built on this platform, ones that have been vetted essentially by the teams. Go through this. As a matter of fact, I made a post about this just a couple of days ago, as of this recording, maybe 2 days ago, that goes through 6 of the exclusive and or native apps that are built directly on Inc., which is, of course, Kraken's blockchain. Now we also have the same idea here, Robinhood. You can look through the ecosystem, and Robinhood is looking at real world assets. So we're looking for things like trading in this particular case, maybe lending, and you can always do a little bit of deeper searches on your own. But what you want, again, that's the native DEX. That used to be what, DYDX. There's a lot going on. Of course, launching tokens. That's not native or exclusive, but it is a platform that people use quite a lot. So I would dive into this ecosystem and see who's building what. Use your AI agent tools to help you, your AI assistants to help you to locate really good projects from these lists. If you guys need help essentially prompting them well and essentially coming up with the right ways of speaking with AI to get the results you want, then again, that's another reason to join us. The next one, of course, is Base. Dive into the Base ecosystem, see what they're building. There's a lot of AI agentic commerce happening on Base. So I would be looking for that type of idea. Now, Base has a lot going for themselves with Coinbase and, of course, the Base chain. So there's certain, and the wallet and such, so there's certain tools that I may not look at. I may not look at other wallets. I think Base wallet is probably just fine. But I would look at something that helps to coordinate AI onto this chain with X402, and essentially that satisfies one of the main purposes of this blockchain. Now let's move on to stable, and you'll see that stable is the same idea. We're looking for tokens in this case that are actually really supposed to be used for things like merchants or settlements or on-ramping, off-ramping, some routers, things like that. We want to get into money transmission here. Of course, AI, agentic commerce, is a major part of this, right? But we just want to make sure that we're finding tools, or we're building tools that are actually useful to the narrative of this chain. Now, it's kind of like, in a sense, where you're an artist, you create something and people will choose your art. You can't necessarily choose your people. In this case, we do our best to eliminate that questionable gray area. And what we do is we essentially look at what this chain is designed for, and we try to find an app to build for this. So we are working on something for stable, and we're also working on something for ARC as well, because I do believe that these two chains have some potential for agentic commerce and real liquidity to flow in through stablecoins. Okay, so I would dive into this chain and look at how I could build tools that are AI agent focused, but also that are dealing with somehow facilitating settlement and deposits, withdrawals, on ramping, off ramping of USDT. And finally, if you're building with AI and you want to work with X402, well, as you see, there are many ways to participate in X402. Community of developers, contributors, companies. Dive into this page, look at the calendar and see if you can join any of these events. Learn what's happening within this space. It is the future of money, but I'm saying this already, that it's essentially the present, right? Follow us over here on X. And again, watch these two videos. The top one is about how to find meme coins in a bear market. And we've said this many times. That's when the blockchain hype starts. It's in a bear market when meme season starts. And watch the one at the bottom if you want to learn more about ARC and institutional chains, corporate chains. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All the best. Let's win together.